What's up, Trekkies? It's your boy Will Walford here with Trekker's Delight, a Star Trek-inspired podcast. Before we get started, we're going to give away $100, so make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to our channel where we will announce the lucky winner every single week. Now, welcome to Trekker's Delight.
Hi everybody, and welcome back to Trekker's Delight First Contact event. And you are going to notice that we have some new faces with us. So I would like to reintroduce to you my really great friend from years and years and years. We're not going to talk about how many, longer than William's been alive. But that's Nora Kidwell.
Yep, so a nice way of saying that I'm old. Thanks for that, old friend.
It's okay. It's okay. I will literally look 23 for the rest of my life.
You should be proud of that. That's quite an achievement. Hi, my name is Nora. I am Marie's old friend.
And also one of the co-hosts of Bon Appetit Geek.
Oh yes, I also have a little YouTube show. My friends and I just started doing it for the pandemic. It's called Bon Appetit Geek. We take our favorite fandoms and we cook some recipes from them. We just did Ted Lasso, so it's over at Bon Appetit Geek Show.
Fantastic. And we are welcoming for the first time the man, the myth, the legend, Marco Mazzola.
The troublesome commenter.
Yes.
just trying to rile Marie up on a nightly basis.
No joke.
Good times.
Knew the right things to say at the right time.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a gift and a curse.
That's literally the basis of our friendship, actually. Is like we met on another show that shall remain nameless, and
yes,
we just went off, and everybody else was doing their thing over here. And
Marco, it was a fun little sideshow.
Yeah, we were the party. But you run Entertainment Rants.
I do. Yep. Again, another podcast built out of the pandemic. Yeah, need something to do. Talk about entertainment stuff and pop culture and geek culture constantly with my friends, and might as well record some of it.
Nice,
awesome. And we are welcoming back Manhel Yunus.
Hey everyone, how are you? Good to see you. I can't wait to actually sink my teeth into this episode. It's definitely one of my favorites. So I'm really happy to meet Nora and Marco for the first time. Good to see William and Marie here. Thanks for having me, guys.
And William Walford of the hair.
Hi, my name is William Walford. I know my hair looks very Corbin bluish right now. I literally just got out the shower. You know, I shake my hair, but I do fry my laptop. So, trust me, I would love to just show off the pearls and just, but it's like, I like my equipment. So, yeah,
that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. Videographer to Trekker's Delight, glad to be here and really excited because I've actually been waiting for this one, so I was not going to miss it. So here we go.
Awesome. So we are going to be discussing Voyager's Living Witness as part of this First Contact event. So Nora, do you want to take us into a summary? That's not to take long.
I'm going to try. I can't, no promises. I did just have a minor panic attack because looking at my notes, it says living waters, but no, I'm good. I'm with you guys. Okay. So this is Voyager, a Living Witness. It's from season 4, episode 23. It aired April 29th, 1998. That's the year I got married. Just bring it on back to Old Town. It was directed by Tim Russ, his debut as a director. Screenwriters, the same old Brian Fuller, Brandon Braga, and Joe Manowski. So the episode starts out with Captain Janeway, and she's looking a little different. She has a different haircuts. Her clothes are a bit different. And the more that we see of her, we see that she's just acting a little bit off. We also see she's speaking with what we later know is an ambassador from Vaskin. His name is Daleth. And they're trying to make a deal. He's talking about getting her involved in the war that's going on between his people and their neighbors, the Kyrians. And Janeway, very uncharacteristic, is like, well, what's in it for us? This is benefiting you. And he said that he can show her how to stabilize a wormhole and help them to get home. So as she's agreeing to this, the ship is attacked. And then they run to the bridge. And as we get there, we see that everybody else is just looking a little different, acting a little weird. We see Neelix first. He's wearing a yellow Starfleet Academy uniform, which is different than his usual colorful suits that we see in him. He tells Janeway that they are being attacked by the Kyrians, and then out of the blue, immediately, she's like, well, let's just send some biogenic weapons and start to murder some people. So that's what they did. That was, of course, how she would react. After that, they fired the weapon. We cut to find out, like the camera pans back and we see them. We're looking to them through a screen. We find out that this is a simulation, that this is a reenactment. We're actually in a museum. We're talking to a curator. His name was Quarren. We find out that this is the Museum of Kyrian Heritage, and that the scene that we just saw with Janeway and the ambassador happened 700 years ago in the current time that we're watching. Of course, we're seeing this as they like kind of pick together the pieces, and this is how their interpretation. So cut back to the simulation. Janeway orders another weapon to be fired because they just weren't killing people fast enough for her. So they fired another one, and then we have a little chuckle, and everybody's like, "Yeah, let's just kill some more people." And then they come back to Quarren. Sorry, I'm trying to cut this down. He's talking about that he calls it a warship. He says that Janeway is known to assimilate other species and recruit them to become soldiers for the Voyager. And then we cut back to the simulation. We see Mr. Kim and Chakotay looking, and they're like, well, they're beating the crap out of somebody. Of course, that's how they do. They're trying to get the information about where their leader, the Kyrian leader, is located. So they're torturing him. And then finally,
ultimately, Voyager has been up to some shenanigans, right?
Yeah,
and,
we're like,
we know it's not actually Voyager.
Yes,
right.
We know that.
So
we see that it's like they're sorry.
Right. So we're actually looking at a narrative that's been promulgated by the victors of the war that's going on, and then once we figure that out, how does the Doctor come in?
Yes. Well, the curator Quarren is giving a speech to all the other visitors, and we have a very angry protester that we see later. Anyway, they had to say, we're going to prove to you this is how it did it. We found this data artifact that's going to prove everything that we said. So then later we see him opening the data artifact, and then it turns out it is a backup of the Doctor. And that's when everything starts to go. The Quarren's like, maybe we didn't have this right, because they thought the Doctor was an android, like straight from the Matrix, had tubes coming out of his neck. And then to find out that he's actually a hologram. They thought they were going back to Mars, and to find out that they were going to Earth. So he kind of figured it out that he had it wrong, but still called him a war criminal. So that was fun. And then the Doctor, yes. That was also in the simulation where Janeway just straight up murdered the leader and his companion.
I mean, I don't like the real Janeway, so I mean,
I know, but that was like, what's happening?
We have an idea that the Kyrians have gotten this wrong, and
yes,
very, very, very wrong. And the Doctor actually begins working with the curator to undo some of that. Right?
Yes, he creates his own simulation to show the Voyager's point of view. And of course, people don't believe him. They still think that he's just trying to get out of being punished. But then he tries to show them that, no, if I can just modify this medical device, I can show you who actually killed the leader. And by that point, it was kind of a moot point. People were like, it doesn't matter. But then they're working on that. There's big protests broke out. There was fights everywhere. And the curator actually told the Doctor, fighting is happening everywhere because of him, essentially. And then he couldn't handle that because he, of course, is a medical hologram. And he's like, just shut me down. And then as they were talking about that, Quarren's like, no, the truth needs to get out. We have to bring peace to the world. And it kind of pulls back again, and we see we're in museum inception. We're actually in the future again, and we're watching this from another curator's perspective. And it turns out that was the beginning of a new era where peace did come about for the two peoples.
And this is actually the part that is William's favorite conspiracy theory. What happens with the Doctor at the end of this episode, William?
He is supposedly on I won't say a shuttlecraft because they obviously didn't have Starfleet technology, but he was on a ship headed back to Earth. Now, given the time period of this, it wouldn't place us in the exact same year, but it would place us in the same decade, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. So like the dude ends up on this planet and, you know, brings peace and all well-being to the masses, and it's like a Care Paravel kind of situation. And eventually he's like, You've evolved enough, and now I'm going to get on the shuttle, and I'm gonna go off and do my thing and hopefully re-encounter, you know, if not my friends, because that's clearly impossible due to lifespans. But maybe find the Federation.
Right. And the ongoing theory that I keep putting out there, which I hope they explore for season 5, 6, 7, whatever they're going to do, however they're going to do it, I do not care. They have the best opportunity. Discovery, Star Trek Discovery, I'm talking about, has the best opportunity to home in using the EMH. Okay, he's a hologram. I don't care how blurry you make him look or how youthful you have to make. I don't care the age of technology. I don't give a shit. Like you can take him. Pretend he is Zimmerman and he wanted to look like Zimmerman. I don't know. Like, just bring him here.
This right here is why we're getting this out now.
We're getting this out right
This is why
now.
we're getting this out.
You have the opportunity to literally become one of the best Trek shows of all time. Like, because you would have brought in something that I guarantee people have already forgotten about. Because right now, people are thinking this should be a Mirror Universe episode. And arguably, it should be. For all we know, he probably did slip over there somehow. But they didn't have the rights to the Mirror Universe, so they couldn't call it the Mirror Universe, which is why it had to be a historical thing. So because we know that it's taking place in the Prime Universe, that gives it room for the EMH to be in Discovery's universe, where they are now in the what century? The 32nd century?
I mean,
Right.
It's 3191.
Right.
Is the time.
Right. So, yeah. Like,
So,
yeah.
So we have an extra doctor floating around. You know, he may or may not show up in Discovery, but that's not what we're going to talk about tonight. We just need to get that out of the way.
That would be
Yeah.
awesome.
I just
I
had
can
to
just
get
see
that out.
all the gasps around the world.
Right?
That'd be
Right?
great.
What we want to talk about here is what is this telling us about First Contact, and what is this telling us about how people approach First Contact? So, anybody got a thought? Marco, you have never not had a thought in your life. Come on.
There's so many. They're arguing with each other. Some are losing.
Oh no.
What is it
Correct
teaching
yourself
us?
an inevitable betrayal.
What is it teaching us about First Contact? I mean, it's so easy to get it wrong, and they're so easy to misinterpret everything, right? It's so easy to pull, as we do, right? Our history books are wrought with inaccuracies, right? And told from a certain point of view. White people, and you know,
Looks like us, yeah.
you know what I'm saying. So you know, it's just
They
the
said
way
it,
it is
not me.
worked, right? I'll be the first one to say
Literally,
it.
it's just Marco at this point. Like,
I stand with you, Marco. It's
It's
Sid
the
doesn't
way
do it.
right? It is just the way it was always done, and it needs to change, obviously, vastly. But that will just rock everybody's world, as it did on the show, right? And it was rocking their world to think that what they had been thought of for 700 years was so wrong, right? And you know, who started the war, who didn't start the war, and it was so, and they end up coming to that point of like, but it doesn't really matter who started it, who didn't. It's time to put it back behind us and learn from it and move forward. And do we know? We get to the future, right? It's 700 years, but then it's what is the jump from what we're really looking at, right? The second.
Does anybody else say? Or does anybody else remember? Because I don't.
I don't. I know it's 700 years when you see the first curator, but how many years forward when the doctor was there?
I don't think they said it was so late. in
Right.
the-
It was another couple of hundred later.
Something like that, right? And so that's where it is. So he gets there. He's now their ambassador or their chief medical person, right? Because he's teaching them all about the medicine. He's like, all right, I'm out. Right? But it did teach them a lot. You know, I was so surprised that second leap was obviously a surprise, and didn't see that one coming, which was really nice. You know, for most of the show. And so just point of fact, Voyager is still one of my favorite series for Star Trek. Like I don't know why. I grew up watching Next Generation in the 80s, right? I was born in 76. And so there you go. So, I've start Next Generation's Picard's my captain, right? But something about Voyager, because I skipped Deep Space Nine, I got to Voyager, and I just stuck with it. And that's the show, oddly enough, I rewatch over and over. I've probably seen Voyager more than I've seen any other series.
And
I don't know.
Living Witness is one of the best episodes that we get out of Voyager, precisely because we have this interesting story and a story structure, right? Like, I mean, because we literally now have like three or four different narratives that we're experiencing, and they're all from different perspectives, and they're literally about how the victors write the history books to suit themselves frequently, but that it's entirely possible to bring out the truth and to experience that truth. Got any thoughts about truth, Manny?
I was just thinking about that actually as you were talking about that.
Go me.
My cousin Mo, philosopher.
I wish we could have gotten him here for this.
Would always say you can never really know the truth of the context because you're in the context. He's like, you never really understand it until you can reflect on it. It's like when those times are being written, when you are in those times, it is impossible because they're subjective, and the bias is always inevitably like interpreted by those imperfect beings that are trapped in them. And it's only on looking back in a population sense, that you can say like, well, we know that these forces were happening. And again, there's such a human quality to this. I mean, obviously they're using aliens to sort of fill in the gap, but as human beings, we're all reflecting like, how many times in history did this happen? Where did this bias come from? Why is it subjectively being interpreted in this way? And so what I enjoyed about this, of course, is the moment where Quarren realizes that his interpretation of the truth, his entire life, where he's you see these people in real life sometimes too, where they think they know the truth so much that they proselytize or advocate in some way, where it's just like with pulpit rhythms, and they want to tell you the truth. Have you heard the truth? Have you heard the truth today?
Sorry, Manny,
You can't handle the truth.
Do you have a minute? I'd like to speak to you about Jesus.
Yes, yeah. I didn't say nothing. I just said
no. I'm sorry. Do you have a minute to speak about the evils of vaccinations?
There you go. Don't run from the Lord.
So yes, that's
we're gonna
all
get
I'm
kicked
saying.
off YouTube. It's gonna be amazing.
But it's been nice. It's been nice, everybody.
That's what I think of the truth. And in this case, with the moment where the director, dude, Quarren, realizes, that everything that he's proselytized about, it could be wrong in that moment, and he just shuts him off. And I love that moment. I love that panicky moment. And then it comes full circle by the end, where the doctor is fully regretful that his impact so many years later has caused this tension, almost like breakthrough war. And he's like, shut me off. I don't want to contribute to anything. And then the director guy's like, we must stand for the truth. He has reflected finally, and realized like, my personal bias, my ego needs to be taken out of this situation. So yeah, when I think of the truth, I think of it's fastidiously trying to hold on to what the Star Trek world thinks of truth, the first duties to the truth. And they're trying to show you a narrative, hopefully colored in like a nice way, where even though we can dislike it or regret it, eventually these characters come around to wanting to tell you the truth.
In as much as they know it, right? Like, I mean, that's one of the great parts about this, right? Is that, truth is so malleable, right? Because even the EMH has a perspective, because, we're in season 4, as you said, we're in season 4. So like his personhood, even though we really deal with it later, his personhood is kind of being developed. And so we have a sense that, like he's gonna have a bit of an axe to grind with respect to like, no, that's just not what we do. That's not who we are. Well, we have seen that that Starfleet officers are capable of some pretty horrific things. I mean, Cisco literally drops a biogenic weapon and just destroys an atmosphere and renders this planet completely poisonous in order to, move forward his own objective. So are we? I mean, this is a great opposite Trek moment, right? Like, I mean, are we really as altruistic as it sounds?
I get it, and I'm with you. I just don't like ever dealing with the fact that the Federation or these Starfleet officers can be morally ambiguous or have moral relativism, and because I like that they're shiny and nice and just out of the package,
This
like
is
clean.
this is where Mo comes in.
Yeah,
He-
Insidious.
And also Tuvok. Tuvok, breaks Starfleet protocol in order to grab that piece of technology, and then, it doesn't work out terribly well for him, right? Like,
what is that?
It was when they
you
tried to
remember they find that it's the memory episode, right? Like where the beings have this ability, have this transporter system or whatever, and it can transport you like super
40
far.
Oh, yeah.
and
That's
the
the
Borg
first
ended
season.
up assimilating them anyway.
They do.
Did they?
They do.
They did.
Thank
We
you,
found
Picard.
out in Picard.
Thank you, Picard.
Yikes. Yikes. Okay. Oh,
But
yes.
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 I like it. It's slowly coming back. It's
Yes,
slowly coming
yes.
back. Mark is
Hey, it's
apparently
early
dying.
for me.
Yeah, I'm okay.
Sorry, guys.
Is that what it is? It's the consumption, right?
Yes, it is. It's okay. I'll be fine tomorrow. I'll be all right. I'll come back. I
We need to
regenerate
find
every
a
24.
I feel like we can. Like we have
All
this
right.
wonderful story background. You can faint on the story background.
That'd be awesome. You just get to stare at my pop figures while I'm going,
Right? I mean,
and my way too late Christmas decorations that are still up. But anyway,
Hey, no judgment.
I mean, it's just might as well. Eventually, it's going to come back around again, right?
Exactly.
So just leave them there.
right.
I love the callback on the Doctor when he does shut him off. In the beginning of the series, when he just keeps getting shut off and gets really pissy about it, or doesn't get shut off and they just leave him on. He's like, "Will you shut me off when you leave?" And then he just turning out the lights and wait, no, click.
This is terrible.
And at that point, he'd been used to his mobile emitter for such a long time, so there's that sort of locked into. Now I'm just in the box again. I'm the genie in the box syndrome, where he doesn't have the freedom and the autonomy that he did before he gets stuck in there,
And that that's an interesting concept too, right? Because it's this sort of metaphorical discussion of freedom, and the episode very much lands on the truth being akin to freedom, right? Like the truth will set you free. The truth will set the not the Kyrians, but the other
Vaskins, the Vaskins, yeah.
Yeah, the Baskins. It will set them free because, and that's really where the protesters are coming from, right?
Mhm.
Because we're dealing with, a power majority and a power minority,
Yes.
which is something that we see over and over and over again. And
Hello.
then it's literally up to the power minority to overthrow this narrative that's been used to keep them in one location, keep them oppressed for so long.
Yeah.
They have to resort to violence on a certain level.
I love that
happens-
at the end.
It happens.
With
It
the
has to be it's violence that's supported by facts, which is nice. But the Kyrians, unless the Kyrians had some sort of galvanizing event, they would never have, as a culture, revisited their bias against the Vaskins, right? Like,
Why
never.
would they? They thought they were the martyrs and the victims, and why would they ever question that?
Right? I really feel like, and I keep coming back to this as a theme, like this week, I don't know why, but I really feel like Living Witness is about stories and how powerful stories are. And those stories, those narratives, extend to the stories we tell each other about our culture, right? For example, we've all been taught, in 1492, maybe not Manny, but the rest of us, 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. But Columbus was a jerk.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But the story of Columbus gets picked up and changed because there was an oppressed minority in the United States at the time that needed a figure that would incorporate them into the overarching narrative of American history. So they used Columbus that way. And now it's almost impossible, right? Like, it's almost impossible to have a real discussion about how that actually worked out. Right?
Or find literature. Like I'm homeschooling and we're teaching early American history, and I'm trying to find truthful literature, and it's difficult.
The oatmeal, my friend. The oatmeal.
He's
That's
that's
indicative of a colonial, situation. You have an indigenous population. I love the ending, sort of to tie back to this idea of repercussions in first contact situations, where the Vaskins and the Kyrians are overlooking the simulation that the doctor plays for them, and you have the Vaskins and the Kyrians arguing about history at that moment, and they're like, or were they the aggressors, as my people have always asserted? That it's a wonderful. There's such a human, obviously, quality to it, right? Where like they're arguing over history. There's no way to really know, and even the idea or notionality of like going back in time and viewing this part of history is still biased. Like, wouldn't be the same if you saw it through those lenses. I find that American culture, and I'm Canadian, just for the record, which is viewed. I was from Southern Ontario, so we saw what you saw, but interpreted it through a different lens because it was happening to others, not to us. So the New York experience was very familiar to me, and I watched like PBS and stuff like that. But the American narrative, it's so old at this point. You could compare it to this experience and be like, well, no, we know that these things are facts. I find that in the current frame of reference that we are all in now, people are for the first time questioning parts of those narratives. Now, it's been happening for a run-up for like, I'm sure 30, 40, 50 years in niche areas or whatever, but there's almost sort of like a crescendo happening where in different parts of intellectual spheres that people are actually questioning things and renaming things and tearing down things and doing things that you wouldn't have seen 20 or 30 years ago. And in this episode, it comes to a boil, it comes to a head, because these tensions had been building for 700 years. It's those whisper campaigns and those ideas of maybe a bits of truth like being mixed in, or just enough discord or disharmony in the official narrative to bring out this splinter idea that the official ideas are wrong. So to bring it sort of back to first contact ideas, the interpretation of first contact, even in the official April 5th, 2063, first contact with the Vulcans, right? We see that in other later Star Trek, whatever, this is the splinter point for the mirror universe. In one way, they shook hands. In another, he fired a phaser. And in two ideas were interpretations created two entirely different universes with the same characters. It sort of makes you question the official narrative of whatever else you're told, whatever's in your history books. As a scientist, we're constantly revising stuff. I don't know.
That's the point, right?
Yeah.
That's the point.
Yeah. Sorry, I'll relent. Go ahead.
No. I'm saying, I'm agreeing with you. Like, that's the point of the scientific method, right? Is to forward, like, move beyond that knowledge. Like, being wrong is not a bad thing, quote unquote.
No.
It's actually like a good thing, because you, like, even if you discover that you're wrong, that your hypothesis is flawed or incorrect or what have you, you've still added to the body of knowledge. You've now like said, hey, no, it doesn't work like this. So maybe we need to look at other ways that it might work.
And think of first contact in our own history as human beings, where the Spanish landed, or the French and the British landed. You could look at other parts of the world where Genghis Khan landed, or other colonial powers, and finding. And it's almost like Civilizations. If you ever played the game Civilizations, there's an outclassing of like technology and culture, and then visiting like a indigenous people or whatever, and they welcome them with like, flower skirts and leis, and they just come at them with like arrows and spears. So this
or plague blankets.
Right. The American. So we have a very specific and particular colonial experience, but we all can interpret those things through different ways, through the colonizer's eyes, through the indigenous eyes. And what's interesting about The Living Witness is it's through Starfleet's eyes. It's trying to hold fast to the truth, which is fascinating. But at the same time has consequences, real consequences in that space and time.
And I think we're wrestling with this. Nora mentioned homeschooling. Marco and I both have young children, and I've been watching very seriously textbook expression that we're seeing coming out of various districts in the United States, and book banning and these types of activities that are basically trying to purge the narrative of unpleasantness, right, or of anything or any event that would run contrary to the narrative that we want to establish.
This is the CRT, yes? The critical race theory.
So it is partially,
Okay.
but like it's also going back to wiping away things like the Holocaust. You know,
Really?
like I don't know if you saw, but Mouse got burned, and Mouse is a
Oh yes, and it made it super popular.
yeah, which is
Yeah.
People are like,
right,
right, it's so cool.
Yo, God love the internet, okay? Not always.
Will Wheaton and LeVar Burton were all over that.
Mhm.
LeVar Burton, if you're on his thing, he's like, buy this book. He's like, the most interesting books are the ones they tell you to burn. Buy those
Yep.
books.
Yep. I mean,
I loved
yeah,
it.
and again, you know, the internet is not just for porn, guys. I'm sorry, Evan Q. But,
Cancel my subscription.
but you know, the internet it has been interesting because it's like it's this incredibly rich opportunity for information sharing and for perspective sharing. Like what we're doing here right now, right? We are contributing to crafting a very another narrative. Now, that's when it works. When it doesn't work, it becomes frightening. Marjorie Taylor Greene. Sorry. You know, something about the crazy got stuck in my throat.
That's fair.
Right. Right. But it is because, you know, like the problem with the internet is that it's self-curated. And so you have to have a certain amount of intellectual curiosity, right? Like you have to be kind of like the curator in Living Witness. You have to be willing. I mean, our knee-jerk reaction is then to like reject anything that challenges our preconceived notions and biases, right? But you've got to be willing to look past that, and you've got to be willing to move forward, and then really sit down and wrestle with new information.
This is a great
you're entirely
Voyager.
self-curated, if everything you've been picked, you accuse. You know, both sides accuse each other of being in echo chambers, and there's a certain amount of truth to that. If you're not listening and you're not and engaging with all of these other institutions and whatever, you're never going to you're never going to encounter that information that's going to encourage you to move beyond where you were, which is a fantastic thing about this episode. I have very real feelings about information. I'm sure everybody's just suddenly like, like we pulled like William's string earlier, and now we pulled Marie's string. Does anybody else have a string?
I'm gonna hide all the strings. Just gonna hide them.
I was looking up the years between Living Witness and The Burn, and when Discovery gets to the 32nd century. While y'all
So
were
you are
talking.
still on this.
Bring it all back.
I have concluded that the Doctor has survived the burn because the burn happened a few years before his program activated, like about 5-6 years before, and Discovery wouldn't make it to that century until 114 years later. But by that point, he's already on Earth, supposedly. So, I would hope, you know, by that century, you have faster than warp 9. But yeah. So anyway, I was still on that. I've concluded. I'm done. I'm stuck on this. I'm serious. You have room to make season 5 great. Like now that Earth is part of the Federation again, and the Doctor is on Earth. Let's say he made it to Earth after a 114-year journey. I'm pretty sure he's gonna be happier than hell. And be like, really? Oh, can I be stationed somewhere? Yeah. And we happen to. What if he's on Voyager? What if he's there?
I really feel like you'll spontaneously combust.
We should save this and revisit like when these come true.
Right?
Like,
Oh,
I
I'm
told
going
you.
I'm going to explode. Like My hair's gonna singe. Anyway, I got us off topic, but yeah.
No,
I mean, yeah,
it's good.
I don't know that there is a. I don't know that there is a topic at this point. we started talking about first contact.
Okay, well, let me ask this: is this because I understand that this is a first contact episode? It kind of reminded me of the conversation we had on Monday. Like, is this really a first contact, or is this a second contact? If you think about it, because they were visited before, and now even though they don't remember it quite right, and there was a lot of biases and a lot of racial biases and so on and so forth, would the Doctor's awakening be qualified as a first contact or a second contact?
That's a good question. Anybody got thoughts? Because I don't. I try real hard not to think.
Lines.
Lower Decks is talks about second contact all the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So first contact, I think, would be the Voyager contact, simply because it is the de facto first contact. They never go the way you think, right? It's rare that you have a first contact in Star Trek that's predictable or, advantageous in exactly the right way or interpreted. There's a great funny one in Enterprise where he has to wear this headdress, the captain, to like do an apology tour and cut pieces of wood, and because Porthos, his dog, peed on some tree or something. It's a funny episode and the idea, but the consequences are real. I think the waking up of the Doctor 700 years later, it's a new people. You could say it's a first contact, even though they know of those people, but really it's second contact. My interpretation.
I think
That makes
that's a
sense.
perspective.
Yeah, 'cause they just got it wrong. They still had contact.
Because it's like, say for instance, when we came into Discovery the first time, now I'm coming back to season 1, they haven't seen or heard from the Klingons in 100 years, so some of those from the previous generation probably died out, and we saw the uniforms change, Starfleet changed, all that changed. But when they met up again on that pilot episode, we knew that this wasn't second contact. They had already met a bunch of times before. Officially, the Starfleet, I won't call it the Federation at that point. The Starfleet had already met the Klingons. Now, even though there's a 100-year gap, where do we draw the line and call it first contact again or second contact?
It's a good question.
I'm just giving everyone a topic because I'm.
Yeah. I would disagree. I would say that any contact is first contact if you remember it.
If you remember,
if aliens came down, then that's first contact. Like, oh, these aliens came out. Even if 1,000 years went by, I'd be like, okay, well, now it's thanks for coming back. In the first season of TNG, they grapple with recontacting the Romulan Empire. Like, they hadn't talked to them in a long time after the war. And then they're like, well, we haven't had contact in 80 years or something like that since. But is that second contact? No, it's first contact. No, it's like later contact over a brief amount. So for me, no matter what, fastidiously, the first contact is the first knowing contact. Whatever that first thing is, no matter how bad it is, it's first.
So we talked about first contact in the episode yesterday, and there the Malkorians, basically they make first contact with the Malkorians, which is in fact the point of the episode. Let's be real. But the Malkorians decide not to pursue their warp process any further, right? And so they drop it. And there's an agreement made that the Federation, that once again, when the society has aged long enough, then, the Federation will come back and we'll have another contact. So is that first contact, second contact?
When the population has found out about it, that's first contact. So let's say that the powers that be hit it or whatever, kind of like a X-Files Smoking Man kind of thing where no one knows except these people in back rooms. No, that's not actually general first contact where like the species or the population is like, did you guys read about this alien?
Right.
Saw TikTok about it.
Right? I mean,
if it doesn't hit TikTok, it doesn't exist.
Yeah, it's not true.
So I don't remember who had a bingo card for 2020 and 2021, but do you remember when the aliens replaced murder hornets?
Yes.
Oh,
I
yeah.
know you guys are not ready. Let's just take these out.
Yeah.
I remembered. We were going through the plagues of Egypt in America.
Yeah.
Right.
So we'll bring
we
this
have
back
the murder
another
hornets,
time.
they're going away. And then
So
all of a
funny.
sudden the government's like, oh yeah, no, we totally know there are UFOs. Like what's going on there? And like it made no ripples.
Like a Wednesday at 1:49. Here,
Right? Like
we
zero
just
ripples.
happened.
And everybody's just like, yeah, okay. But also back to the murder hornets. Which I'm never
It's
gonna
just
get
the-
over, guys. Like I'm never gonna get over the fact
You
that there
will
It was
be
the perfect year to reveal that there were actually UFOs in the sky.
Right. So I mean, this is. I mean,
I thought we'd been established that. Like
Yeah.
this is the year.
But like, it had been since Harry Reid and even before that, whatever, I don't know. But again, and my favorite episode of X-Files is the one where there's a Russian X-Files. What about there are other powers in the world, and I'm sure that like if even though they made contact with
there's
this
actually
one,
a great riff off of Superman where he doesn't land in the United States, he lands in Russia.
Yeah,
Red
Red
Sun.
Sun. Yeah. It's a great series.
yeah,
It's fantastic, and it
Yeah.
literally throws everything you know about Superman and just goes whoosh,
I love stuff
and
like
asks you to
that.
think about it. So one of the things we're talking about through this First Contact series, right, like, is we're culminating on First Contact Day with a discussion of what we think First Contact would be like. In Living Witness, this First Contact situation is a galvanizing event. I mean, it's even 700 years in the past, like from where the original action of the episode takes place. It's very clear that Voyager's intervention, however it was perceived one way or the other, did contribute to the effectuation of regime change on this planet. And it was just this massive event. Well, contrast that with, the kind of under the radar, there are aliens drop. I mean, do we think there should be fanfare? Do we think that that real First Contact, if in fact that's what it is, should have that impact
in the real world, like our actual world?
Mm-hmm.
We have knowledge that we have unidentified flying objects, not that we have aliens. That is a very different.
I don't know. Nobody can take a clear photo of them or a goddamn video with their shaky ass cameras. Like, how many smartphones do you need pointed at one UFO and nobody can get a good shot of it? Stand still, you jackass, and take a photo of it. Are you having a stroke mid video?
Maybe it's going like turpentine in the air. You're not going to get me.
I can keep my camera straight.
Even if I'm chasing after a 20-month-old, I can get a better shot than this one UFO who just seems to be hovering in one spot.
It's like we're in a country where you have to hold a handgun with two hands, but you can't do that with a camera.
You can't do it with the phone.
Or a phone. And our phones literally put cameras in the 90s to shame.
That's right.
So
only UFOs only show up during hurricanes.
See this? I have a trackpad right here.
That's
Hold it still. Hold it still, Junior. You can manage this. So we can get
Strap a
shot of this.
GoPro to your head and just, that's how you do it.
That's amazing. I've now everybody the GoPro.
I just, but Marie, you know me. I have this weird I have to interject logic into things that should never be made logical. I just had that whole discussion with my wife about Encanto this morning and how ridiculous the movie is. I love that movie, but I love it. It's a xenophobic society that's huddled in this mountain range and can't get out, yet they have everything they need. Where did you get all this shit? How did you make the accordions? Where did you make the stuff to get the accordions made?
They basically used the same magic that the Scorpion King used in The Mummy 2.
That's got to be it, because this village is only 50 years old. It was nothing. It was just nothing there, and then the mountains came up, and you built a village in 50 years with everything. And you can't get out to get anything.
I will argue that Encanto takes place in the prime universe of Star Trek.
I would agree.
And I'll tell you how. Because
I have now officially lost control.
They have to be beaming. They have to be beaming stuff out of this. That's somebody's power. They're beaming things down. You know what I mean?
Okay.
They're teleporting stuff into this village.
All right,
think
we
now.
are literally going to make you a section on the website, and it's going to be Q Trek for conspiracy theories. We'll
Subscribe.
lay it on.
No. For real. So we established that there's this candle that apparently gives them everything they desire and everything they want, with the exception, and then a few powers and then
It's
some.
the Beverly Crusher sex candle.
Well, that is actually in addition to it, because we find out later that it was that same candle where grandfather was trapped, and it ended up being that same dude. He just made himself pasty white. Well, anyway, to match Crusher. Well, anyway, that's that. Okay, and we've established that several hundred years earlier,
That's predatory on
that
in
same
Disney.
Anubis being was there for the Scorpion King when they made the Anubis thing and the whole Oasis and all that we saw in Mummy 2. Now
You're not talking about that Scorpion King movie with The Rock,
I am,
right?
I am talking about
That horrible CGI.
I will leave it
I have to
alone.
go.
Okay, leave
That
it alone. It was 2000. Leave it alone. Leave
My
it alone.
cousin
Also, that's
works
what
for
they
Leave
did.
it alone.
Dwayne
Really?
Johnson.
Leave it alone.
Yeah, my
Leave it
cousin works
alone.
for ILM.
I
He
know
worked on
it's
that movie.
horrible. That's
How does
not
Dwayne
the
Johnson
point.
end up in all these
Okay,
movies
leave
with
it
Trek?
alone.
That's the best.
CGI?
So how does this relate to Trek? I'll tell you how. Because Mummy Man is there as a freaking admiral, so I can only ascertain that either he kept that candle with him, or he
I don't
is
want to
the
know where
great-
he smuggled it.
or he is the great grandson.
He took notes from Christopher
of
Walken.
Arnold.
He was walking something.
He was
You're
going-
listening lazily to the left, sir. What's going on?
I kept this safe for you. Don't ask me how. Yeah. No.
So that is
You know what? You keep it. I'm good.
that is my last conspiracy theory for today's episode.
You say that. We've got 10 more minutes, my friend. Like,
It's
you're going to
very
try one
true.
out.
It's
You
very
are
true.
going to try one out.
Quite true. Oh, as soon as y'all talked about that candle, I can go on.
Apparently, so could Beverly Crusher.
I'm here for it.
Okay, this is going to be
Oh,
random,
bringing it
but I
back.
saw a video of Gates
Love
McFadden saying that they had recently come out with some with the weed that's called Kush. Well, it's called Kush, but they named it after her, Kusher.
Ah, that's great.
So it's like.
I'm just
Oh,
gonna
Nora
jot
got
that
real
down real
excited. And so she made a response video saying, does she thinks that this is appropriate, taking her Trek name and putting it to weed? And she said, if it makes y'all feel good, I don't give a
Leaning away.
shit. And she kind of alluded to, my character doesn't have any room to talk when it comes to smoke and inhaling certain things, and
I mean, God love Gates McFadden. Like, she was acting her heart out against a wall.
literally.
Yeah, like, I mean, that episode's so terrible, guys. It's just so terrible. I did not think when we started this broadcast, I did not think that we were going to get from First Contact to Sex Candle.
I'm just saying.
Very
dramatic.
Maybe that's the reason why her and Picard didn't work out.
It's in magic.
Well, that's a chef kiss right there.
William, you know what you know which image you've got to pull up now. You know.
Someone say it.
Someone said it. That means I gotta go to it.
How is it that we
Did
cannot
someone
find
say
this on StreamYard? Like, how? There she is.
Congratulations, Marco. You've been initiated.
She looks like she's sitting on the sex scandal. Yeah.
Oh, you haven't seen that episode, probably. Have you watched Picard?
Oh
It's
yeah.
completely
I-
turned on
oh,
this road.
Did the new one drop today? Because it doesn't drop on
No,
Wednesdays.
tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Oh,
It's
okay.
Thursday for me.
My math is bad. My math is bad.
Dude,
Math is hard.
I ended up posting a video today. It's supposed to go live on Tuesdays, and then my editor's just like, where were you yesterday? And I'm like, but yesterday was Monday. He's like, no, it was not.
Are they in the future or something?
Apparently.
Like, are you in a different time zone?
No, it has nothing to do with that. It literally has to do with the fact that I had somehow just failed to acknowledge that it was Wednesday.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It happens.
Math is
You guys
tough.
are
Five
busy
out of
people.
four. 5 out of 4 people find math hard.
Every time I laugh, I'm going to.
I'm glad that we've circled a bunch of different concepts here, but I gotta say, like, this is one of my favorite episodes in Voyager for so many reasons. I think it's a super relatable episode for those who are in Star Trek, and sometimes the best episodes are the ones where they're not on Voyager, they're not doing, like, it's totally away from all of that in the plot of Voyager, and it gets away from that, and we're discussing it in the context of First Contact. There's many references that you could, like, discuss it in this framework or whatever, but as a First Contact, and often, I think there was a Kazon who said it once when they said, everyone knows the Voyager. You come, you destroy, and then you leave. And there had a myth had been built. I think it was by the end of the first season. A myth had been built of this, like, ship that had been going from planet to planet, just trying to say, hey. But this string of civilizations that they had done irreparable damage to, inadvertently or not, there's always consequences, had, like, come up with a myth. Do you guys remember what I'm talking about?
I do. I'm trying to remember if it was the Kazon or
In the Kazon was
Is it part of? Wait, this might be wrong because I've had a string of, like, really horrifically wrong statements all week, which we've established is only 2 days because it's still only Tuesday. Right. But there's an episode of Voyager when they start encountering other planets that see Voyager coming and get super pissed because there's this group of con artists that have started pretending to be Voyager.
Fake Janeway.
yes, yeah, fake Janeway, fake Tuvok. Yeah, that was fun. The pips were like, I remember the pips were like giant, like usually, like, everything was just really kind of off. It was really fun.
It's like somebody vaguely saw, like, a Starfleet uniform.
Yeah.
Somewhere, but didn't quite get it right.
Yeah, my favorite episodes are always the Doctor episodes.
Oh yeah, Robert.
Really?
Yeah, I'm a huge Robert Picardo fan. I loved him all the way back to Inner Space, and but just for whatever reason, I just liked his character. Ticker Tenor, Dr. Spy. Well, that's one of my favorites. Was just losing it and keeps changing really fast. That's really one of my favorite episodes. But I was always a Doctor fan. So when he finally got the mobile emitter, I'm like, all right, we're on board. Here we go. Now we're getting some serious shit because he's gonna be going everywhere with them. I was really happy about that when he's doing, like, the hollow pictures constantly. He's bugging everybody with his slideshows.
He was probably not nearly as excited as Robert Picardo was.
No, I know. He was, like, stuck in this one room for the first 3 seasons until he finally gets
Like,
it.
man.
4th season, yeah.
This is great, but and he really did add so much to that show. Like, I was just talking about Basics Part 1 and Part 2 and the whole Lon Suter arc, and that 2-parter would not have been nearly as successful if it had been anybody else acting alongside Brad Dourif.
Yeah.
I love the part where before we even get into the idea of Picard as it's coming to life with Maddox and all this, it comes from Measure of a Man and the idea of, like, what is consciousness in an artificial being and stuff, and all of that was explored in Voyager as the growth of the Doctor. You don't even realize it's kind of happening as holography, is sort of given. By the end, there's a group of holograms who are fighting for their autonomy and their rights, and that growth was so organic. To me, as a Star Trek fan, it was.
Where are they in Picard, guys?
Oh, the holograms.
Yeah,
That's a good question.
Like, I would like to know because, I mean,
That's
in
a
Author
very
Order,
good
we
question.
clearly get a sense
They have
that,
holographic things, but they don't have holograms. Like,
Yeah,
What
we
do they
haven't really
have?
seen it.
do you think
One
that
autonomy.
the thing, as soon as Voyager went back, they kind of changed things?
They started something.
but if they did,
Well-
where are these holograms?
Wait a minute,
And
wait a
it's not
minute, wait a
like-
minute.
So they
What?
either, like,
Rubbing.
Okay, so I think because you gotta remember, up until the whole Mars incident, they were using androids,
Mhm.
right? And then the synthetic man came, and they weren't using anything at all.
No, they were using Romulans.
in the Confederation.
Well, not
No, I mean, but also
in
Picard.
general. So, like, before the
Picard
Confederation.
himself was using Romulan.
Speaking of, while we have 5 minutes left, have any of y'all seen Renegades?
Oh, the
No.
Star Trek Renegades. Yes, yes.
Okay, so to avoid after the whole lawsuit that happened, what was that? That was that short film called Axanar. That Axanar lawsuit.
Axanar.
So Renegades took place in the Prime universe, but to avoid copyright issues, they renamed everything and all the characters, and instead of calling the Federation in the second episode of Renegades, which is pretty much Picard if you think about it, they called it the Confederation. And they had their own little ship, and they had main cast members. Even E-Chip was there, and it was literally just like Picard. And I'm starting to see that I'm thinking that they kind of took the storyline for Discovery from Axanar, and they took the storyline for Picard from Renegades.
There it is. There it is, guys. I said there will be another one in 10 minutes. And boom.
Like clockwork.
I'm just telling you, I can think this through logically. Like,
I'm sure you can.
like now
Most conspiracy theories can, yes.
I'm just saying. Look, if at the end of the day, and now this is the last thing I'm going to say. At the end of the day, the entirety of the universe is balanced on the back of a giant koala.
Oh wow! Everyone knows it's on the back of a turtle. I don't know what you're saying.
Right? The Great Atuan. Yes.
The man said koala, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
I know. And now
that will
we have
always
from
be my
Candle
favorite Trek line.
to Red Sun to Discworld. I mean, we're gonna get bingo in a minute. Like somebody's got to work a Doctor Who reference in.
I really think I hope they make the next Doctor Who, whoever it be Marina Sirtis. I really wanted her to be a Doctor.
There we go.
I really did. That's not a conspiracy. That's a want.
You just managed my bingo
Yeah, that's a
card for
wish.
me.
I mean, it'd be so great. It'd be so great.
And she did move back. She did move back to the UK.
Yeah, I don't blame her. You know, like yeah, and I feel bad for, even though it's probably been a year now. I feel so sorry for her loss.
What? Who?
Her husband.
Who?
Marina
Marina
Sirtis.
Oh yeah. That's brutal.
I'm just like,
That's too bad.
ooh, that.
All right, I'm gonna need somebody to come up with something funny so that we can.
I was
go
gonna say I done took this all the way down.
Thanks.
How
Yeah.
about
Happens.
a little of this?
Manny.
Oh,
Manny.
Yeah, you don't get like a little Tuvok dancing, nothing.
Oh no, I just typed sex candle. That's all. I just remember.
You typed sex scandal and that's what came up? Wow.
Yeah.
Dude,
Gates
you
of Fat.
got on safe side. Literally, that's it.
Oh goodness.
Try DuckDuckGo.
Well, I had a great time with you guys talking about Living Witness. I thought it was, and it's one of my favorites in Voyager, like for so many reasons and I definitely agree with William that if they, again, I think we're all frustrated. Marie's really good at picking out Easter eggs and context from, she's like, this reminded me of this, and this reminded me of that. And I'm like, oh, snap, I gotta go find the thing that she referenced. And we're all looking for something, in the newer shows that will tie us back as longtime fans because of this huge gap between series and like I love Lower Decks because it's super referential to all. It's like, hey, did you see there's another Quarks? And you're like, wow. For me, I'm always on the lookout for DS9 and stuff like that, but Voyager's great too. Is that we want that edification, that idea of like, where's our series? Like, this is new and this is great, but we want the fan service, and not in like some obvious way, but like some way that like satisfies the continuity of the plots that were so dear to us. Because I think one of the reasons that we're all here and all discussing this is the impact, not just the gratification, but the impact of these stories on us. So especially this one was a very impactful episode. specifically to me as a seeing how there's real world politics that could be described in these very similar ways, colonizing powers and indigenous peoples. That dichotomy is explored, but not very often, and given in a future context that's supposedly unbiased. It's so fascinating how people write those characters to me, and the way that they and if it's seen through the lens of the Federation, it's sometimes seen through the bias of justice, and the bent of the universe, right? Like is finally bending in that way. So for me,
Human rights, even the term is racist.
Pardon?
Human rights, even the term is racist.
Is it? Oh, I guess it's human. Yeah, it's super. Yes, but that's all I know.
But all right, guys, we are about ready to say
Marie,
for today.
Marie.
What?
I got one more.
Oh my god! All right, lay it on me.
Just one more. Okay, so it's not a conspiracy theory, but more so a thought, and it's something I wanted to piggyback on that Marco was talking about earlier, about how it's just like, okay, we find out we're 700 years later, and then we find out we're a couple of hundred years later after that, and blah 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 blah, blah and all this other stuff, right? Tell me that did not remind you of Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit,
Okay.
or Chronicles of Shannara.
Yeah. That's all I had. Jesus wept.
All right, I'm gonna start the goodbye sequence again. Anybody else? Nora, Marco?
I can't top a Planet of the Apes reference. What do you want from me?
So much, Marco. So much.
You bad.
You gotta be banned from First Contact Day. But anyway, so I want to say thank you, certainly to Marco and Nora, and Manny and William, maybe less William, for having me in this wonderful odyssey for an hour. Certainly check the description box. We will link both Marco's awesome podcast and Bon Appetit Geek. Check them out, and certainly like, subscribe, comment, let us know what you thought and what you would like to see going forward. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Now, again, I'm going to say this again because we're near the end of our show. If you are our allies, we are not talking to you. We are not talking to you. This does not... Okay, we're not talking to you. Stop trying to take our and make it your goddamn business. It ain't got nothing to do with you. It ain't got nothing to do with you.
Our experience of grief independently.
Bruh.
Yes.
I love that they're in the comments.
So much is like I'm just reading the comments.
Yeah. They should broaden their child out. It's such a good point, Will. God, that's such a good point. And he's really thought about it too. You should be here. William, get over here.
I thought he had a girlfriend on Insta. It's been ages since I've mucked about, but
Okay, moving on. Let's move on.
we gotta move on.